Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of Inside Town Hall. I'm your host, Madeline Shields. This month, we're meeting a group of movers and shakers who have been serving the city of Sioux Falls for many years. And joining me is City Councilor Rick Kiley, and his guest is Jill Franken from the Sioux Falls Public Health Department, and she's the director of for a little bit longer,
That's right,
of the Sioux Falls Health Department. So thank you for joining us. And let's talk about you have some great news coming up. Great for you, not so great for the city of Sioux Falls. You want to let the cat out of the bag?
Well, I am sorry to say that Health Director Jill Franken will be retiring soon. She has served the community well. There are going to be some big shoes to fill, especially considering the past 12 months that we have all worked ourselves through. But you know, just this last year hasn't defined what she has done for the city of Sioux Falls. So I hope that by doing this show, we can illustrate the many areas that she has contributed to the community of Sioux Falls.
Well, absolutely. That's what I was going to say. Did you have to add one more thing? Was a pandemic onto the end of your resume to of all the things that you have done in your time? Let's talk a little bit about what have you done as the Director of Public Health for Sioux Falls. And I remember things from starting new billboards to, you know, commercials about public health.
I know. You know, when I first took over as the health director, one of the things that was starting to emerge nationally was really understanding the health of your community. And I was really proud of that very first report that we put out, where we tried to collect as much data as we could about what was the status of health in Sioux Falls, which has eventually become the Community Health Needs Assessment that we do every 3 years in partnership with Avera and Sanford. And that is an extremely comprehensive report, and within that we make recommendations for what we should be prioritizing to really help make the community healthier and more vibrant with greater well-being. So that really launched kind of the beginning of, you know, my time as the director. The other things that we've done along the way are really working on our daycare ordinance, and with the help of City Council, we every so many years continue to refine that and strengthen that while allowing for the ability for daycare providers to operate successfully. But that was an accomplishment that we really took some control over and strengthened that program. Also really proud of the work that we've done in the behavioral health space and really making an impact. That's been work that's really been through pretty much the entirety of my time as director, whether it's internally with Falls Community Health, of which you served on the board for Falls Community Health, and that's, you know, when we really started working more closely together during that time before you became a counselor. And then, you know, strengthening the work and understanding the community's need, which has now become also the link, which has been also very well supported by the City Council as well. But I go back to the Community Health Needs Assessment, and that really helped us highlight the need for more services in that area. And so that's really been something I'm incredibly proud of. I could go on and on because there's just been a few. We also worked very closely with the City Council on the ambulance contract about midway into my time as director, and we're able to get that successfully through that franchise agreement, and that was an entirely new process to do an RFP for those services. That was a big lift, and in partnership with Sioux Falls Fire Rescue and our other EMS providers, our Metro 911, etc., Metro Communications now. You know, that was a really important body of work that we did as well. And then through our Falls Community Health and the work we do with adding school-based sites, adding services that are really important for, you know, the underserved and uninsured in our community. That's just a few things that we've accomplished, you know, in the last decade. So
that's a long list. Well, let's talk even about the school-based sites, if folks don't know it. That was huge. Are there many cities that take that leap to bring healthcare to public schools?
You know, I'll let Jill address, are there many cities that benefit from the school-based health systems that we do? But as a former teacher, I know that my school at Washington High School certainly benefited from the services, and there are numerous other schools throughout the city, and it's servicing a population that otherwise would go without having their needs met. So serving on the Falls Community Health Board before becoming a city councilor was certainly a privilege, and it was also an eye-opener as to the services, the public health services that are available here in Sioux Falls. When we think of health services, we often think of the major health organizations of Era and Sanford, but we have a lot to be proud with our Falls Community Health and the system that has been built under Jill's guidance.
Will you talk a little bit about what are the services that you offer and who could go to Falls Community Health?
Well, really, anyone, to be, just comprehensive, anyone can come and be a patient of Falls Community Health. You don't have to have a special, be uninsured, underserved in any particular way. You don't have to have a certain economic status. Anyone can be served, and we encourage that actually, because the best work we can do is when we have lots of folks helping support those services through the revenues that we can generate, whether you're insured or you're on Medicare or have Medicaid or are helping to pay for part of your bill because you're uninsured, and so you pay that yourself. But what's unique is that based on your income, you're able to be eligible for reduced cost of your care. And so that's just really been the hallmark of community health centers, and it is something that's really, really important for our community and the 12,000 people we serve, knowing that at any time any one of them might, if they are insured, they might be uninsured at some point. And so knowing they can get continuity of care at Falls Community Health, or someone who's uninsured becoming insured, can, that's really huge. And our school-based sites have really added a dimension to that, where now people in their neighborhoods can also obtain services at those 3 school-based sites.
Well, years ago when I was a news reporter, that was I did a story about how so many downtown business people were turning to Falls Community Health because the clinic was right there. It was close. And do you still see that? And do you see that maybe as an opportunity to remind people to come back, because you don't have to leave work for more than a few minutes or maybe a half hour instead of driving across town?
That's always been a focus of ours, is to make sure that we try and promote that neighborhood piece, but we know we could always do more. The resources we have aren't unlimited, and so we have to make the best use of the dollars that we have. And but yes, the downtown is a great option. People who work downtown, who live downtown, to be able to come and be served at Falls Community Health. And I guarantee you're going to get high quality care, just like you would at any other clinic, by seeing one of our providers or our staff.
Okay. Talk about the search now for filling these big shoes that she is leaving.
Well, Mayor Paul Tenhaken will put together a search committee and screen applicants. Eventually, they will select a replacement, bring it forward on the consent agenda to the Sioux Falls City Council, and it'll go through the same process that we did with the fire chief just recently.
I could add to that as well, and one piece that's required is I'm also the executive director of Falls Community Health by being the health director of the city, and the Falls Community Health Governing Board will also have input, and they will vote on that next health director as well. And that's a really nice feature of them having a governance responsibility, which is federally required of a health center, and so there will be involvement by the board chair as well in the process.
Okay. Well, we just have a couple of seconds. What are your plans? What are you going to do? Any big plans?
Well, my motto is I endeavor to experience and learn things currently unknowable to me. So wherever that takes me and wherever my faith leads me is where I'll be going. But right now I am looking forward to time with family, my 2 grandchildren, and my kids, and my friends. Our friends are very important to my husband and I, as well as our family, and so we look forward to spending more time with them too.
Well, congratulations, and we don't be a stranger.
I won't.
Well, when we come back, we will meet our retiring fire chief and our new fire chief. Stay with us.
So many people in the Sioux Empire could benefit from having a mentor, an ongoing one-to-one relationship to help another person achieve success in the world benefits everyone. Please support and promote the Sioux 52 initiative at your place of work by encouraging your employees to give 1 hour a week to mentoring. That's it. Just 1 hour a week, 52 hours a year. Let's build a community of mentors so our region of opportunity provides opportunity for everyone.
Well, joining me is Sioux Falls City Councilor Rick Kiley, and his first guest is Brad Goodroad, our Sioux Falls Fire Chief, and we have some exciting news to talk about during this episode of Inside Town Hall, so let's get to it. Why did you pick the Fire Chief for your first guest?
Well, Chief Goodroad will be retiring here shortly, and he has had a long career with Sioux Falls Fire and Rescue, and I thought it was only fitting that we would have him on the program this afternoon.
Sure, well, welcome, and what an exciting time for you.
Yeah.
You had to get a pandemic under your belt, and then you can exit, right?
Yes. Very good.
Tell us a little bit about some of the highlights of your career as Sioux Falls Fire Chief.
Yeah, you bet. I think probably the most current big thing that we've been involved with is the Public Safety Training Center. I've kind of been part of that since we looked at having our consultants come in, look at our needs assessment for fire and police, and then going through the schematic design, going through including Metro Communications into that, and the design development, and now working into the construction phase of that. So it's been probably one of the highlights of my career, certainly.
Are you going to be around to see it to the end? I mean, will you be in town?
I hope to be in town, yes. I would like to be there the day that it opens, for sure.
All right.
Yep.
Brad has been a great ally with that particular project. Obviously, it benefits Sioux Falls Fire and Rescue as well as the Sioux Falls Police Department and now Metro Management 911 Services. And I have served on the Metro board for a little over 7 years now. And it's always been a goal to get them into a new facility, one that enables them to do their job even more efficiently than what they do, and one that provides them, I think, with the environment that is more conducive to doing one's job as well. And Chief Goodroad has been a great advocate for doing that, adding them to the public safety training facility. Kind of in the late stages too. It wasn't easy to do so, but Chief Goodroad carried that all the way through.
Sure. Now you've had a 27-year career with Sioux Falls Fire. Let's talk a little bit about, what did you see over those 27 years? Talk about, where you started and of course you ended as the fire chief. What have you seen? What did you learn from? And what do you want people to know about how Sioux Falls has changed over those years?
Sure. I think some of our services that we deliver have changed a lot. When I started, we were EMTs, so they were kind of just getting into the medical side of that. It was basically a fire department, and there was a little start into kind of our urban search and rescue stuff, rope rescue, water rescue, that type of thing. Not much in hazmat, just a little bit. And now all those specialties are just a huge part of what we do. We have stations that have those specialties. The level that we've taken all those to has been incredible, and the expectation that the city has, of course, of us to provide those services has risen as well.
Are you a lifelong resident of Sioux Falls?
I am.
And so you have seen some of these changes as well, and as your position on the City Council, can you talk about how those changes, and especially under his leadership, has improved Sioux Falls?
Well, it's improved dramatically, especially since I've lived here my entire life, and I won't tell you how long that has been. But the number of stations have grown under Chief Goodroad's time as our fire chief. The technology has tremendously changed. The environment operating now in a pandemic has changed. So it was just the right person to fill the role when we needed him back in 2017, and has done a tremendous job.
You know, when I was growing up, you know, that really you heard about the fire department and everything they always said is, you know, change the batteries in your smoke detector. That's really what the message was at the very beginning, and that's what everybody talked to children about. And then it was the stop, drop, and roll. Tell us a little bit about what you have, you know, how things have changed and the message that you have with the public now. What are some of those important things that you need to convey to the public?
Mm-hmm. One of the biggest things that I think since I started is the car safety seat program. That's something that, you know, has really been attached to the fire department and provide that service not only just at Station 3, but all of our stations now have people that can do that, you know, and that's certainly a message that we've always provided to them.
Okay, so if somebody's new and they haven't watched this and they don't know what you're talking about, what is that child safety seat?
Right, so the child safety seats that go in your car need to be properly installed. A lot of people have a hard time figuring out how to install those. All of our technicians are trained to be able to do that. And then also, if there is a financial need that the family has, they're able to get a free car seat through that.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, when does the fire department respond? Is it at every 911 call or is it limited?
Right, so they're all different priorities that we have. When you look at like a car accident that happens, it depends. It depends on if there needs to be somebody that needs extrication. It depends on the level of their injuries. So when it comes to medical calls, again, there's different priorities of that as well. So not every medical call we would go on, but the more life-threatening, severe ones that we would go on.
Okay.
And I think that's a very good point. The role that our men and women play in Sioux Falls Fire and Rescue is so much more than rushing into burning buildings when the rest of us are rushing out. They do play a role in the medical needs at accident scenes, and they will probably be playing a bigger role even too at dealing with mental health related issues as we open up the new triage center known as the Link. So it's very multifaceted what they do.
Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the things that you will never forget, you know, as a firefighter, and then some of the advice that you have for the people who maybe want to be firefighters, mm-hmm. or just the folks who are firefighters who are coming up behind you?
Sure, we see them deal with a lot of things that people should never see and deal with mm-hmm. On a daily basis, and I think one of the things that we've really improved on is our mental health awareness, and I think when I started, that just wasn't even a thing that we talked about. You just dealt with it. And now that, you know, we understand that a lot better. We understand the cumulative effects of that on people and on our members. And we do a lot of things through our peer support team to be able to improve that and help them along. And I think that's just been a huge cultural change, you know, over my time there.
Sure. Well, and there's been a stigma about people because you're big, tough firefighters. You're not supposed to feel bad about what's going on. You're supposed to just get over it. And you've seen that happen. Has it been slow changing? Or then there are still people that you still have to convince, hey, it's okay? You know, and how do you do that?
Yeah, that'll always be there. Mm-hmm. And we've employed a lot of different resources towards this, and I think just this slow trickle of this, you know, over time, just shows that. And when people see and utilize services and utilize our peer support team, they understand that it's helpful, mm-hmm. and then that word just spreads and it just slowly gets us to where we are today.
What's your advice for people who, young people that might want to be firefighters?
It's an incredible career. It's an incredible family atmosphere. It's a great culture. There's been a lot of culture changes over time that I've got to be part of, and you know, it's a good, diverse, welcoming group of people, and encourage anybody that would be interested to apply for the position.
Okay. And from the city's aspect, he has developed the union and management of the firefighters collaboration models. Can you talk about that in terms of the city council, and you know, how can you work together to all come together for the best of both parties over the years?
You know, that's a good point, because over my 7 years serving on the council, I have been involved in in voting on agreements between the city and the 3 unions that represent the workers, our city workers. And I'll have to say one of the smoothest talks or negotiations have always involved Sioux Falls Fire and Rescue. During my time, I don't recall that we've ever reached an impasse, that there's ever been any issues. Agreement has been reached early on, and it's been very smooth going, and I attribute much of that to the leadership at Sioux Falls Fire and Rescue.
Okay, well, great. Well, let's find out, what are you going to do in retirement? Do you have any big plans?
I do not have something planned right away. We are going to take a little time to separate, and then I'll look for kind of another career of some type in the future, I think. But nope, I'm just looking forward to being present while I'm here, and then moving on to that when I get there.
Well, congratulations, and you're finished this month, is that correct?
Yep, a week from today.
Yeah, very good. All right. Well, thank you. Well, we are not finished. We will be talking next to our next fire chief. Stick around. We'll be back in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ken with Falls Community Health, and I'm here to talk about depression. Have you been feeling excessively sad? Have you had thoughts of hurting yourself? Have you had trouble getting out of bed because you just lack motivation? If you have any of these symptoms, you may have a brain disease called depression, where the natural wiring of your brain becomes disrupted. Counseling and medications may help restore your natural brain function. If you have any questions about depression, please contact your physician or Falls Community Health.
Welcome back to Inside Town Hall, where we are visiting with City Councilor Rick Kiley, and his next guest is Matt McAravey. He is our new fire chief in Sioux Falls, who is starting this month. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I consider myself a local farm kid. I grew up here just north of town, actually what's now just 1.5 miles from Foundation Park. So went to school at Tri-Valley and then came to Augustana University, met my future wife, and graduated there with a degree in business administration. Joined the fire department in 2002 and climbed through the ranks from there, working through operations.
Great. Well, Councilor Kiley, can you talk a little bit about how the process that goes into finding a new fire chief, and ultimately we have Chief McAravey?
Well, after Chief Goodroad announced his retirement, Mayor Paul Tenhaken assembled a team to look into who will be our next fire chief, and they went through the process of interviews, and we landed on a very good choice here with soon-to-be Chief McAravey. And he's very indicative of the quality of men and women that we have in all of our departments across the city. But you can just tell by the different positions that he has served in throughout his career with Sioux Falls Fire and Rescue. He's continued to accept more and more responsibility till ultimately it has led him to this position.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. What is your background? What are some of the things that you've already done?
So obviously started as a firefighter, came up through there. Through that I was involved with our hazmat program, served on our truck companies and operations through that. Promoted to fire apparatus operator after a number of years, and then spent time in that, and then ultimately took that test for captain to sit in that front seat and be that crew member, that director of that crew that responds. So that was really rewarding to make that. I've always considered that captain to be that person, that front line that gets to have the biggest impact whenever the fire truck rolls out.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about, what do you envision moving forward? Of course, the Fire Training Center is going to be finished, hopefully under your tenure. Talk a little bit about what you see even with that, and then moving forward.
Yep. Part of the neat collaboration with the Public Safety Training Center is that we're going to have even a closer relationship with our police department brothers and sisters. So in my time with the fire department, it's amazing the programs where we've grown together. So we assist them with their SWAT program through a medics. We work with our hazmats with their bomb squad. And just we continue to evolve there. We're working with them now with a drone program, and then potentially looking at how we could potentially serve with some dive services. So that relationship has certainly grown, and as we get to move into a shared facility where we get to spend time working out together, eating together, those bonds will just grow. And I really think that there will be a lot of synergy and just a lot of neat relationship building through that opportunity.
Okay. And what do you see moving forward as the city of Sioux Falls grows and working with the fire department and expanding services as well to these new neighborhoods that are going to be expanded?
Well, that's a good point. We are just growing leaps and bounds. I mean, when I grew up in this city, 41st Street was the southern boundary, and now we've extended well beyond that. And so the need for additional firehouses, we're up to 12 now. And Matt has overseen the construction of that, and as well as the staffing of that particular firehouse. So, and their job responsibilities continue to expand too. As I'd mentioned previously, it's not just with dealing fires, but dealing with the mental health of the community, dealing oftentimes being first on the scene of accidents to render aid. So I would continue to see more of that, and our ISO rating is #1, which is extremely important for our community because that impacts everybody's insurance rates. It's a measurement of the effectiveness of our fire department, and it's rated on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the top. And we are #1 and have been, and I would expect that rating will continue, and those benefits will continue to be provided to the citizens of Sioux Falls.
For folks who might not know, what is an ISO rating?
Well, it's the insurance industry's rating of the effectiveness of your fire department. And the more effective they are, the lower your rates are in the community.
Oh, great. You talked about drones and divers, and these are kind of been out of the realm of what you would think a firefighter would do. You think of people going in and putting out fires and saving people from burning places. Talk about those responsibilities and how you see technology playing a role in keeping everyone in the community safe.
For sure, and part of it, like I see, like a major part of where we've grown as a department is we've tried to see where can we be proactive. You mentioned earlier about smoke detectors. We're being as proactive we can on the fire side. So as fires start to decrease, where can we provide? Where's our next level of risk? So emergency services was one of those. We've grown in our USAR program. So anytime we had a building collapse in town, and that team really got to stand up and shine, they were trained specifically to perform in that, and they did exceptionally well. We have a hazmat team that was identified that we needed, back towards the 2001, they were already up, but in 2001 we really saw that, we need to increase what our performance is there. So we did that. We just continue to evolve. The new technology is online and stabilized to the point that drones are something that we feel we can use, whether it be in a search platform or just reconnaissance for a tornado incident or a smaller scale scene. So that's a piece that we're willing to jump into, and then the dive is a piece that we're looking at to, okay, what are some risks that we have within our boundaries that we need to look at providing another service for, and that was just an area that we've identified. As
a city, we have to have some foresight into what tragedy might happen. And how do you determine that? How did you we hadn't had a building collapse before, but yet you had a trained team that knew how to respond to that. Even on the city front, how do you anticipate and where do you look?
So part of what we do is we go through an accreditation process. So I believe it was 2001 when we were first accredited. It's an international agency that looks at it. It really makes you take a deep dive into your services, and they make you evaluate on fire, EMS, USAR, hazmat, those kind of things, and really evaluate your programs, see what you have for risks within your agency, and then what are you doing to improve that. So the entire process is looked at continuous improvement. So when we look at what our risks are, we look at, well, what do we need to perform better in those areas.
Okay, well, good. Well, welcome. Do you have a family here in town? I do,
yes. Married my college sweetheart, Laura, and then we have 4 what I still consider small children, but they keep eating and growing. So a 13, a 10, and we have twins that are 7.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on Inside Town Hall. And this won't be your last time you'll be here. We'll be hearing from you
it's been enjoyable. I hope to come back.
And thank you for joining us for this episode. That is our time for Inside Town Hall. If you have any questions or concerns, you can always find out the latest city news on SiouxFalls.org. Thanks for watching.